The sun rose over McAllen, Texas, like it did every morning, pale gold bleeding across the Rio Grande, casting long shadows over the rusted chain-link fences that marked the border. But just 20 minutes south, in Reynosa, dawn brought no peace. Only heat, dust, and the quiet dread that clung to every small business owner like sweat on skin. Raul Mendoza unlocked his barbershop at 6:15 a.m., the same time he had for the past 17 years. Cortes Finos Raul wasn't much. 2 chairs, a faded red, white and blue barber pole that flickered like a dying beacon, and a radio perpetually tuned to a Spanish-language station playing old rancheras. But it was his. Built with calloused hands and late nights, paid for in full after his wife died of cancer in 2016. No loans, no favors, just honest work. He swept the floor, boiled water for coffee, and laid out his tools with ritual care. Scissors sharpened weekly, combs sterilized in bleach, clippers oiled like sacred instruments. By 7:30, his first client, Don Ernesto, a retired schoolteacher, was already waiting on the bench outside, sipping from a styrofoam cup. "Buenos días, maestro," Raúl said, smiling. "Hoy cortas con el alma, Raúl," Don Ernesto replied. "Today you cut with the soul." They both laughed. It was a joke between them. But Raúl knew, deep in his bones, that today something was wrong. The street was too quiet, no vendors shouting prices, no children running to school. Even the stray dogs seemed to have vanished. Then came the black Suburban. It rolled up slow, deliberate, tires crunching over broken glass and discarded bottle caps. No plates. Tinted windows so dark they looked like obsidian. It stopped right in front of the shop. The engine idled. Raúl didn't flinch. He kept arranging his tools, but his hands, steady for decades, paused for half a second on the straight razor. The doors opened, 3 men stepped out, all in black tactical vests over plain tees, no logos, no patches, just cold efficiency. The leader, tall, shaved head, a scar running from temple to jaw, walked straight to the door and pushed it open without knocking. The bell above the door jingled like a death knell. "Raúl Mendoza?" the man asked. Voice flat, no accent. Not Texan, not Mexican, just cartel. Raúl nodded once, didn't speak. The man placed a small envelope on the counter, thick, stuffed with cash. Raúl could tell by the weight. Then he pulled out a ledger and a pen. $2,000 a week, the man said. "Starting today. Protection. You keep your doors open. Your family stays safe." Raúl's eyes flicked to Don Ernesto, who sat frozen in the chair, eyes wide. "You're with Los Zetas?" Raúl asked, voice calm. The man smiled. "Now we're the Cartel del Noreste. Stronger, cleaner." "Deadlier." He leaned in. "And you don't ask questions." Raúl nodded slowly. "Sí, entiendo." He reached into the register, pulled out $127 in singles and fives, his morning take, and added it to the envelope. "This is all I have today." The cartel enforcer didn't move, just stared. Raúl sighed, then reached under the counter. Not for a weapon, but for an old shoebox. From it, he withdrew a crisp $500 bill, U.S. currency, folded tight. "Take it," he said. "Come back tomorrow. I'll have the rest." The man took the envelope, didn't count it. "Smart man," he said. Then he turned and left. The Suburban roared away, leaving behind the stench of exhaust and fear. Don Ernesto stood up, trembling. "Dios mío, Raúl, what are you going to do?" Raúl picked up the clippers and turned them on. The hum filled the silence. "I'm going to give them exactly what they want," he said. But as he resumed cutting Don Ernesto's hair, his eyes drifted to the mirror, and for the briefest moment, his reflection betrayed something the old teacher couldn't see. Recognition, not fear, not anger, calculation, because Raúl Mendoza hadn't always been a barber. 20 years ago, in the early days of the Gulf Cartel's reign, he'd been El Contador, the quiet logistics coordinator who mapped smuggling routes through Texas oil fields and coordinated fuel drops across the Chihuahuan desert. He never carried a gun, never touched a gram of coke, but he knew how cartels bled from the inside, how paranoia ate loyalty, how a single altered ledger entry could turn brother against brother. He'd walked away in 2005 after a raid in Matamoros, left 12 dead, including his younger cousin, changed his name, buried his past, became Raul the Barber, invisible, harmless, forgotten, until today. Now they'd made a mistake, not because Raul was dangerous, but because he remembered how monsters die, not by bullets, but by their own hunger. That night, alone in the back room, Raul opened a floorboard beneath the sink. Inside, a burner phone, a sealed USB drive, and a faded photograph of a man with a familiar scar. Older, yes, but unmistakable. The cartel lieutenant who'd just extorted him was the nephew of the man who'd ordered his cousin's execution. Raul didn't smile, he didn't weep. He simply plugged in the phone and dialed a number he hadn't used in 19 years. The screen read, Protocolo Fantasma, 1 ring, 2. Then a voice, dry as desert wind. ¿Quién lo busca? Soy el relojero, Raul whispered. I'm the clockmaker. A pause. Then, the clocks are broken, and time just ran out. The line went dead. Outside, a coyote howled in the distance. Somewhere across the river, a siren wailed. This wasn't fiction. This was happening right now. The burner phone stayed dark for 43 hours. Raul didn't try again. He knew better. In the old days, impatience got you buried in a mass grave outside Nuevo Laredo with your tongue cut out. He returned to routine, opened the shop at 6:15 a.m., served coffee to Don Ernesto, trimmed the edges of teenage boys heading to school, and swept the same floor like nothing had changed. But his eyes never stopped watching. He noted the white pickup that idled 2 blocks down every afternoon. The man in the grey hoodie who lingered near the taco stand across the street, pretending to scroll through his phone. Surveillance. Amateurish. Sloppy. The Cartel del Noreste was expanding too fast, recruiting street kids and ex-military mercenaries who didn't understand the old rules. In border towns, silence is armor. On the 3rd night, the phone buzzed. Not a call, a text, 1 word. Café. Raul exhaled. It was the signal. They'd meet at the abandoned diner on Calle Hidalgo, the same place where, in 2004, he'd handed encrypted shipping manifests to a Gulf cartel courier before the Zetas tore the organization apart from within. He left the shop at 11 p.m., wearing a worn denim jacket and carrying a thermos of chamomile tea. No phone, no wallet, just the burner in his back pocket and a folded map of Reynosa's drainage tunnels. Hand-drawn, memorized, never photographed. The diner's neon sign flickered, La Luz Perdida, the lost light. Inside, 3 figures waited at a corner booth. First, Hector El Silencio Rojas, once the Gulf Cartel's top financial auditor, now a retired accountant living off rental income in McAllen. Bald, thick glasses, fingers permanently stained with ink. He hadn't spoken above a whisper since a Zeta hit team murdered his wife in 2011, but his mind, still a steel trap. Second, Lick. Elena Vargas, a disbarred lawyer who'd laundered billions through shell companies in Belize and Houston before turning state's witness in 2016. She'd vanished into witness protection until 2 years ago, when she resurfaced in Brownsville running a non-profit for displaced cartel widows. Her eyes were tired but sharp. She knew every loophole in Mexican and U.S. extradition treaties. Third, Dr. Mateo Flores, a former pharmaceutical chemist who developed synthetic opioids for Juarez Labs before his daughter overdosed on a batch he'd accidentally mislabeled. Now he brewed herbal remedies in a trailer near the far Reynosa International Bridge. He rarely left his property, but when he did, people died. Quietly, legally, and without autopsies raising questions. Raul sat. No greetings, no pleasantries. You shouldn't have called, Hector whispered, eyes darting to the street. They're watching every old ghost. They took my shop, Raoul said. They took my peace, and they don't even know who I am. Eleanor lit a cigarette. Illegal indoors, but she didn't care. The Norest isn't like the old Zetas. They use AI, facial recognition from traffic cams in McAllen, bank alerts on cash deposits over $500. You're already flagged. Mateo slid a manila envelope across the table. Inside, photos of the 3 men who'd visited Raoul's shop, driver's licenses, home addresses, social media profiles, even a screenshot of one posting Bible verses on Facebook the night before his uncle was beheaded in 2018. How? Raoul asked. Traffic cam near the bridge, Mateo said. Your Suburban triggered a license plate reader in Texas. I pulled the VIN through a friend at DPS, traced the owner, a shell company registered to a dead man in Laredo. But the real owner? He tapped a name. Javier El Cuervo Mendez, mid-level commander, runs extortion for 5 blocks in downtown Reynosa. Known for drowning debtors in horse troughs, Raoul studied the photo, young, arrogant, smiling beside a new Ford Raptor. He thinks this is a game, Raoul said. It is, Elena replied, until someone loses their head. Hector opened his briefcase. Inside, 3 burner phones, each preloaded with encrypted apps, fake ID numbers and one-time SIM cards routed through Panama. We don't exist after tonight, he whispered. If you move alone. No calls, no meetings. Only dead drops at the drainage tunnel entrance behind the Pemex station. Mateo added, I can adulterate their product. Not enough to kill users, just enough to make them sick. Panic spreads faster than bullets. Elena leaned forward. I'll plant a fake ledger showing El Cuervo skimmed 30% of protection money. Send it anonymously to their internal affairs unit, the Oficina de Disciplina. They execute traitors within 48 hours. Raoul nodded slowly. He didn't want blood. But he knew, in cartel logic, mercy was weakness, and weakness invited invasion. There's one more thing, he said. El Cuervo's father, Rafael Mendez, was the one who gave the order to kill my cousin in Matamoros. Rafael died in 2019. But his son, he's using the same methods, same cruelty, same arrogance. Silence filled the diner. Then Hector whispered, so this isn't just about your barbershop? No, Raoul said, it's about balance. They spent the next 3 hours assigning roles, timing, and escape routes. No names would be spoken again, no records kept, everything in their heads, everything deniable. At 2:17 a.m., they left separately. Hector through the back alley, Elena on foot toward the bridge, Mateo in a rusted Hyundai with tinted windows. Raoul walked home under a moonless sky. He passed the white pickup, didn't look, didn't flinch. But inside his jacket pocket, his fingers traced the edge of a micro SD card Elena had slipped him. It contained bank records, encrypted communications, and a voice clip of El Cuervo bragging about cleaning a taco vendor who refused to pay. Evidence, not for the police, never for the police, for the cartel's own executioners. Back at the shop, Raoul poured himself a glass of water, sat in the barber chair, looked at his reflection. The barber was gone. In his place sat El Relojero, the clockmaker who once wound the gears of an empire, and now knew exactly how to break them. He turned off the light. Outside, a dog barked. Somewhere in Reynosa, a man named Javier Mendez laughed with his men over cheap tequila, unaware that his countdown had already begun. This wasn't fiction. This was happening right now. The first death came not with a gunshot, but with a cough. It happened at 3:14 a.m. In a flophouse behind the bus terminal in downtown Reynosa. A young addict named Lalo, barely 19, missing 2 front teeth, skin like old parchment, collapsed on a stained mattress after snorting a fresh batch of Cartel del Noreste fentanyl. He didn't scream, didn't convulse, just stopped breathing, eyes open, fingers still clutching the foil packet stamped with a crude black scorpion, the Norestes brand. By dawn, 3 more bodies were found in adjacent rooms. all with the same scorpion stamp, all dead from respiratory arrest. Panic rippled through the streets like heat haze. Users whispered, "La araña está envenenada," the spider is poisoned. El Cuervo Mendez heard the rumors by 9 a.m. He stormed into the stash house, a converted auto repair shop near the industrial park, kicking over crates of vacuum-sealed bricks. "Who cut this batch?" he yelled at his chemist, a nervous man named Rivas with trembling hands and meth-stained teeth. Rivas swore it was pure. Same supplier, same process. But El Cuervo didn't believe him. He drew a pistol, pressed it to Rivas's temple, and forced him to snort a line from a random brick. Rivas lived. That only made things worse, because if the product wasn't bad from the start, then someone had tampered with it after it left the lab. Paranoia bloomed like a black flower. El Cuervo ordered all distribution halted, all couriers debriefed. All storage units swept for bugs, cameras, or hidden rivals. He interrogated 2 low-level dealers himself, drowning one in a barrel of engine oil until the man confessed to letting his cousin watch the stash room for 15 minutes. The cousin vanished that night, but the damage was done. Users switched to rival suppliers, dealers demanded refunds. The Norest's reputation, ruthless, reliable, feared, cracked under the weight of uncertainty. What El Cuervo didn't know was that the contamination hadn't come from a rival cartel. It had come from a trailer near the Far Bridge. Dr. Mateo Flores hadn't used poison, not exactly. He'd synthesized a derivative of succinylcholine, a muscle relaxant used in surgeries that, in uncontrolled doses, paralyzes the diaphragm. Odorless, tasteless, chemically undetectable in standard tox screens, unless you knew what to look for. He'd injected it into 50 key distribution units using a micro needle disguised as a USB drive. Each vial contained just enough to kill 1 user per brick. Rare, but plausible enough to look like bad luck. The genius wasn't in the kill. It was in the pattern. Mateo targeted only bricks destined for street-level sales in Reynosa's east side. El Cuervo's personal territory, not the high-end shipments to Dallas or San Antonio, not the wholesale loads crossing into Texas, only the small-time sales that funded his extortion ring. In other words, he made El Cuervo look incompetent, and in cartel logic, incompetence is treason. Raúl watched it unfold from his barbershop. He didn't celebrate, didn't gloat. He simply noted the changes, fewer black SUVs on his street. More furtive glances from El Cuervo's men. One of them, thin, jumpy, with a tattoo of a weeping virgin on his neck, came in for a haircut. Raúl gave him a clean fade, all the while listening as the man muttered about snakes in the kitchen. After he left, Raúl swept the hair into a dustpan, then paused. From the trimmings, he plucked a single strand with a follicle. He sealed it in a plastic bag. Later that night, he dropped it into a drainage grate behind the Pemex station, Dead Drop Alpha. Hector would run DNA, cross-reference it with cartel databases, identify the man, then trace his calls. Because every leak starts with one nervous voice. Meanwhile, Elena worked her angle. She'd created a fake email address in the name of a disgruntled Norest accountant. From a public library in McAllen, she sent an encrypted message to the Cartel del Noreste's Internal Security Division, a shadowy unit known as La Oficina. The subject line, Desvío en Reynosa, pruebas adjuntas. Attached, a doctored ledger showing El Cuervo transferring $120,000 in protection money to a private account in Belize. The account, real. But it belonged to Elena's non-profit, legally registered, tax-compliant, and utterly untraceable back to her. The email vanished into the cartel's digital labyrinth, but Raúl knew it would surface, because paranoia is a weapon, and he'd just handed it to their enemies. 3 days later, a body turned up in the Rio Grande, not El Cuervo's, but his second-in-command, a man named Ortega, floating face down near the Anzalduas Dam. His wrists were bound with zip ties, his mouth stuffed with US dollar bills. a message: traitors drown in greed. El Cuervo was now isolated, his inner circle shrinking, his superiors questioning his control. Raúl received a final text from Mateo. Fase 1 completa. La araña se come a sí misma. The spider eats itself. He deleted it. Then he opened his shop at 6:15 a.m. as usual. Don Ernesto was waiting. Hoy hay viento del norte, the old man said quietly. The north wind is blowing. Raúl nodded. In their code it meant the wolves are fighting. Sí, Raúl replied, plugging in the clippers, and the barber stays quiet. But as he worked, his mind was already on phase 2. Because you don't kill a cartel leader with poison, you kill him with his own people's fear, and fear, once planted, grows in the dark. This wasn't fiction. This was happening right now. The body of Ortega, El Cuervo's lieutenant, wasn't just dumped in the river, it was staged. His hands were bound not with ordinary zip ties, but with the high, tensile black straps used exclusively by the Cartel del Noreste's internal punishment squads. The US bills in his mouth, all stamped with the same hidden UV mark used in their weekly cash collections, tiny, invisible to the naked eye, but unmistakable to cartel accountants. And most damning of all, tucked into his sock was a micro SD card containing encrypted voice recordings of El Cuervo negotiating a private fentanyl deal with a Gulf cartel splinter group. None of it was real, but every detail was plausible. Elena Vargas had spent weeks reverse engineering the cartel's internal protocols from old case files, intercepted chatter, and 3 coffee-fueled nights with a former Mexican federal prosecutor turned private security consultant in Monterrey. She knew how the Noreste marked their money, how they recorded loyalty checks, how they handled traitors, the SD card's audio, voiced by a deep-fake algorithm trained on 6 hours of El Cuervo's public rants, mostly drunken Facebook Live rants from 2022, which Mateo had scraped from defunct pages. The Gulf Cartel contact, a fictional name Elena pulled from an old Interpol bulletin. The beauty was in the silence. No one claimed responsibility. No rival cartel bragged. The body just appeared. And with it, doubt. Within 48 hours, El Cuervo was summoned to a strategy meeting in Nuevo Laredo. He refused to go alone. He took his last trusted enforcer, a man named Chino, ex-GAIF Special Forces, rumored to have personally executed 17 rivals, with him. They never returned. Instead, a video surfaced on a hidden Telegram channel used only by high-level cartel operatives. Grainy, night vision. Filmed from a ceiling corner of a concrete warehouse. El Cuervo on his knees. Chino, already dead, slumped against a wall, throat slit ear to ear. A voice, distorted, calm, asked, ¿Quién te dio permiso para negociar con el enemigo? El Cuervo denied it, swore on his mother's grave, offered to take a lie detector test using cartel-approved methods. 3 grams of pure cocaine in one nostril, truth serum in the other. The voice didn't respond. Instead, a hand, gloved, with a silver ring shaped like a scorpion, placed a phone in front of El Cuervo's face. On screen, the ledger Elena had forged, the Belize account, the transaction timestamps matching known fentanyl seizures in McAllen. Then, worse, a photo of El Cuervo's 6-year-old son, Mateo, walking out of school in Reynosa that morning, alone. El Cuervo broke. Not with words, with silence. He looked at the camera, not with fear, but with the dawning horror of a man who realizes he's been outplayed. Not by an army, but by a ghost. The video ended abruptly. 3 days later, both bodies were found in the trunk of a burned-out Nissan in a vacant lot near the McAllen airport. No IDs, no signs of torture. Just 2 clean bullet holes to the base of the skull, execution-style, cartel-to-cartel protocol. Officially, they'd been marked as traidors, their families disowned, their assets seized. Unofficially, the Reynosa extortion cell collapsed overnight. Shops stopped paying. dealers vanished. The white pickup that had watched Raoul's barbershop was gone. But Raoul didn't relax. He knew Phase 2 wasn't over until the last thread snapped, so he waited and watched. 2 nights later, a woman came into his shop, a stranger, mid-30s, with tired eyes and a silver cross around her neck. She asked for a men's cut, but her Spanish carried a Texan lilt. Raoul didn't ask questions. He washed her hair, trimmed her bangs, and never mentioned that her left hand trembled slightly when she checked her phone. She left without speaking. But Raoul noticed the license plate on her Toyota Corolla, Texas plates, McAllen registration, and a bumper sticker that read, "Justice for Victims, Rio Grande Valley Advocacy." A lawyer, a journalist, a relative? He didn't know yet, but as he swept her dark hair into the dustpan, he found something tucked into the collar of her jacket. A small GPS tracker, no bigger than a dime. Someone was watching her too. He pocketed the tracker. Later that night, he placed it inside an empty bleach bottle and dropped it into the drainage tunnel. Hector's team would trace its signal, because if she was connected to El Cuervo's death, she might be the spark that reignites the fire. Meanwhile, Mateo sent a final update. La oficina limpia Reynosa. Nuevos jefes llegan en 72 horas. The office is cleaning Reynosa. New bosses arrive in 72 hours. Raoul understood. The Cartel del Noreste wasn't defeated, but their local leadership was gone. Now came Phase 3, make sure no one wanted to replace them. He returned to his shop the next morning. The radio played a ranchera about lost love. Don Ernesto sat on the bench, sipping coffee. "Hoy no hay viento," he said softly. "No wind today." Raoul nodded. "But the ground is still shaking. Because in the cartel world, when a leader falls, 2 things happen. The vultures circle and the ghosts rise." Raoul wasn't a ghost. He was the silence between the gunshots. And silence, in the borderlands, is the loudest sound of all. This wasn't fiction. This was happening right now. The new commander arrived in a white armored Tahoe with diplomatic plates. Fake, of course, but convincing enough to breeze through checkpoints. His name was Ignacio El Contador Rios, not to be confused with Raoul, though the irony wasn't lost on anyone who remembered the old Gulf cartel days. This Contador wasn't a number cruncher. He was a debt collector, a psychological predator, known for breaking men by ruining their families, not their bodies. He set up operations in a gated compound on the outskirts of Reynosa, surrounded by floodlights and Dobermans. Within 48 hours, he summoned every small business owner who'd stopped paying protection. Not to punish them, yet to audit them. He reviewed their bank records, their supply invoices, their utility bills. Then he smiled and said, "You owe 20% interest for every week you skipped. Pay by Friday, or your daughter's school gets a visit." He wasn't bluffing. On Wednesday, a bakery owner's teenage son vanished after soccer practice. Returned Thursday morning with 2 broken fingers and a note. "Next time, it's your eyes." Fear returned, colder, sharper. But Raoul watched El Contador closely and saw the cracks. The man drank heavily, slept only 4 hours a night, checked his phone every 7 minutes, and every evening at 8:12 p.m. He called the same number, a private clinic in Monterrey. Raoul had Hector trace it. The clinic specialized in addiction recovery, specifically opioid dependency. El Contador wasn't just stressed, he was hooked. Mateo confirmed it. The man had been prescribed fentanyl patches after a bullet wound in 2021. Now, he was using street-grade synthetics to stay alert during 18-hour shifts. Perfect. Phase 3 didn't require another body. It required pressure. Elena forged a series of medical records showing El Contador had been treated for psychotic episodes and paranoid delusions at a private psych ward in Saltillo. She routed them through a compromised nurse's email in the Reynosa Municipal Hospital. Within hours, rumors spread among the lower ranks. El jefe está loco, ve fantasmas. The boss is crazy. He sees ghosts. Then came the financial squeeze. Hector, using shell companies Raul had once designed decades ago, initiated a series of microtransactions from dormant Gulf cartel accounts, tiny deposits, 37, 89s, 124, into El Contador's personal account, all flagged with suspicious codes. Not enough to trigger US alerts, but enough to ping Mexico's Financial Intelligence Unit, UIF. Within a week, El Contador's personal accounts were frozen. His armored vehicle was repossessed by a private lender, a front Elena controlled. His mistress in McAllen, unaware she was part of the trap, received an anonymous text with photos of him snorting powder in his office, along with the message, "He's using again, and he's broke." She left that night, taking his backup phone and a thumb drive containing his encrypted contacts. Worst of all, El Contador's superiors in Monterrey sent a terse message. "Resolve Reynosa in 10 days, or we send someone who will." The pressure was absolute. Raul delivered the final blow not with data, but with memory. He found an old photo from 2008. El Contador, then a junior enforcer, standing over the body of a butcher who refused to pay. The man's wife and 2 daughters wept in the background. Raul cropped the image, enhanced the daughters' faces and, using facial recognition from public school records, confirmed one of them now worked as a receptionist at the Reynosa courthouse. He didn't send the photo to El Contador. He sent it to his mother, an elderly woman living in a quiet neighborhood in Saltillo. Attached note, "Your son made these girls orphans. They remember, do you?" 2 days later, El Contador missed his nightly call to the clinic. He missed roll call. He missed his 8 p.m. scotch. On the 7th day, his Dobermans were found starving in the compound. The gates were open. The safe was empty. He'd fled, alone, broke, and hunted by his own cartel for abandoning post. The Reynosa cell didn't just crumble. It evaporated. No new commander came. No threats were issued. The shops reopened. The taco stands buzzed. The children walked to school without fear. Raul kept cutting hair, but he knew it wasn't over, because 2 days after El Contador vanished, the woman with the Texan lilt returned. This time, she didn't ask for a haircut. She sat in the client chair, placed a manila folder on the counter, and said in calm, fluent Spanish, "I know who you are, Raul Mendoza. Or should I say, El Relojero?" Raul didn't flinch. He kept sharpening his scissors. "Who are you?" he asked. "My name is Ana Delgado," she said. "I was El Cuervo's public defender before he stopped showing up to court. His sister was my roommate in law school. She killed herself last month, left a note. They made him a monster, then killed him for it." She opened the folder. Inside, surveillance photos of Raul meeting Hector at the diner, a map of the drainage tunnels, a copy of the forged ledger, and the GPS tracker he'd removed from her jacket. "You didn't just destroy them," she said. "You made them destroy each other. No guns, no blood on your hands, just silence." Raul finally looked at her. "Why are you here?" "Because if you can do this," she said, voice trembling, "maybe you can help others. Maybe you can stop what's coming." "What's coming?" She leaned forward. "The Cartel del Noreste just merged with a Texas-based private security firm. They're going corporate, going legal, and they're targeting border towns like McAllen next." Raul said nothing, but his mind raced, because Ana wasn't just a lawyer. She was the spark. And sparks in dry grass start fires. Outside, a siren wailed. Not from Reynosa, from McAllen. This wasn't fiction. This was happening right now. Ana Delgado didn't leave after her revelation. She stayed in the barber chair for 2 hours, long after the sun dipped below the corrugated rooftops of Reynosa. Raul worked in silence, sweeping, wiping mirrors, boiling water for tea, while she sat with her hands folded, eyes never leaving his reflection in the glass. She wasn't threatening, not armed, not recording, but she carried something more dangerous than a weapon: certainty. "You could have walked away," she finally said. "After they took your shop, you could have paid. Lived in fear like everyone else, but you didn't. Raoul set down his broom. Fear is a tax. I stopped paying it a long time ago. Then why help me? She asked. I haven't agreed to help you. But you will, she said. Not with arrogance, but with quiet grief. Because you saw what they did to El Cuervo's sister, Marta. She wasn't part of the cartel. She taught third grade in Mission, Texas. She donated school supplies. And when her brother vanished, the arrest left a dead chicken on her porch with a note. Tell your ghost to stop haunting us. Raoul's hands stilled. He remembered that tactic, old Zeta playbook, psychological warfare, punish the family to break the fighter. They don't just kill, Anna continued. They erase dignity, hope, memory. And now they're using shell companies, US bank accounts, and former DEA consultants to legitimize their operations. They're buying real estate in Far, sponsoring youth soccer leagues in Edinburgh, all while their enforcers still dump bodies in the cane fields. She pulled a flash drive from her pocket. This contains internal emails from Sentinel Shield Security, the Texas firm they partnered with. It shows payments to Reynosa hit squads disguised as contractor bonuses. I got it from a whistleblower. He disappeared 3 days ago. Raoul didn't touch it. Why come to me? He asked. Because the police won't act. The FBI says it's too cross-jurisdictional. The Mexican authorities are either bought or terrified. But you know how they think, how they move, how they break. Raoul turned off the overhead light. The shop darkened, save for the street lamp outside casting long shadows across the linoleum floor. I'm not a hero, he said. I'm a man who buried his past. What I did, it wasn't justice. It was balance. Balance isn't enough anymore, Anna said. Now they're building schools with naming libraries after dead narcos. Your silence helped stop one cell, but if we don't expose the system, 10 more will rise. She stood, placed the flash drive on the counter, and walked to the door. If you change your mind, she said without turning. There's a legal aid office on 23rd Street in McAllen. Ask for Mrs. Lopez. That's me. Then she left. Raoul waited until her Corolla faded into the night before picking up the flash drive. He didn't plug it in, not yet. Instead, he walked to the back room, lifted the floorboard, and placed it beside the burner phone and the old photo of his cousin. That night, he called Hector. La abogada sabe, he said. The lawyer knows. A long pause. Then, is she a threat? No, Raoul replied. She's a mirror. And mirrors, in the right light, reveal what you've tried to forget. The next morning, Raoul opened his shop as usual. But this time he didn't turn on the radio. He left the door open. Let the sounds of the street in, the laughter of children, the rumble of a tamale cart, the distant hum of traffic crossing into Texas. He was listening. By noon, the rumors had spread. El Contador hadn't just fled. He'd been spotted at a bus station in Matamoros, clean-shaven, wearing a priest's collar, heading south. Whether he'd survive the journey was uncertain, but his reign in Reynosa was over. Yet Raoul felt no relief. Because Anna had shown him something he'd ignored. The cartel wasn't just adapting, it was assimilating, blending into the fabric of border life so seamlessly that soon no one would remember where the corruption began. That evening, he crossed the bridge into McAllen. He wore a baseball cap, sunglasses, and a plain grey hoodie. Nothing flashy, nothing memorable. Just another man in a city of 150,000. He found the legal aid office on 23rd Street, a modest brick building with peeling paint and a bilingual sign, Centro de Justicia Comunitaria. He didn't go inside. He watched from across the street for 3 hours. No black SUVs, no suspicious loiterers, just clients coming and going, mothers with strollers, elderly men with canes, teenagers with legal paperwork clutched in trembling hands. At 6:45 p.m., Anna stepped out, locking the door behind her. She carried a tote bag and a paper cup of tea. She looked exhausted, but not broken. Raoul approached. She didn't seem surprised. You came, she said. I need to see the files, he replied. All of them. She studied his face. You understand. Once you see them, you can't unsee them. And if they find out you're involved, they won't just kill you. They'll make sure your name is erased from every record, every memory. Raoul nodded. I was erased once. I survived. They walked to her car. She opened the trunk, not to retrieve files, but to reveal a portable hard drive locked in a biometric safe. This isn't just about Reynosa, she said, scanning her fingerprint. The lock clicked open. It's about how cartels are becoming multinational corporations with HR departments, compliance officers, and offshore investors. And the worst part, she looked him in the eye. Some of those investors live in Houston, Austin, even Washington. Raoul took the drive. I'll need a secure terminal, he said. No internet, no cloud, air-gapped. I have one, she replied, at a friend's ranch outside Edinburgh. No cameras, no cell signal, just landline and generators. Good, Raoul said, because what I'm going to do, it won't leave a single digital footprint. He paused. But if I help you, you do exactly as I say. No interviews, no leaks, no heroics. We work in shadows, like surgeons, not soldiers. Anna extended her hand. Deal. They shook, not as allies, not as friends, as survivors. As Raoul walked back toward the bridge, the weight of the hard drive in his pocket felt heavier than any gun, because information in the right hands could dismantle empires. But in the wrong hands, it could build new ones, and the line between justice and vengeance had never been thinner. This wasn't fiction. This was happening right now. The ranch outside Edinburgh sat 10 miles off the grid, nestled in a bend of the Rio Grande where the river slowed to a whisper. Barbed wire coiled along the fence line. Wind turbines spun lazily in the distance. No neighbors, no drones, just mesquite trees and silence. Anna led Raoul to a converted barn. Steel doors, Faraday-shielded walls, generator humming under a tarp. Inside, a single desk, a military-grade laptop, air-gapped, no Wi-Fi chip, and a wall covered in red string connecting photos, bank statements, and corporate charters. This is everything, she said, plugging in the hard drive. Sentinel Shield Security. Founded in 2021 by ex-DEA agent Daniel Croft. On paper, they provide border risk mitigation for agribusinesses and logistics firms. In reality, she pulled up a flowchart. They're the Noresta's U.S. arm. Money flows from Texas shell companies, Belize trusts, private security contracts, cash payments to Reynosa enforcers. Raoul studied the screen. Too clean. Exactly, Anna said. They learned from the old cartels. No flashy mansions, no narco corridos. They wear suits. Donate to police charities, even sponsor a youth coding camp in McAllen. Raoul's eyes narrowed. The coding camp? Yes, run by a non-profit called Frontera Futures. Guess who funds it? He didn't need to ask. He already knew. Because 2 weeks ago, a recruiter from that camp had approached his shop, offering free summer tech classes to local kids. Raoul had declined politely. Now he understood. It wasn't recruitment. It was reconnaissance. Mapping communities, identifying vulnerable families, building goodwill before the extortion began. They're not just laundering money, Raoul said. They're laundering trust. Anna nodded. And they're getting bolder. Last month, Sentinel Shield won a $4.2 million contract with the city of Far to monitor critical infrastructure. That means cameras on every street, access to license plate readers. And she clicked a file, a clause allowing them to detain suspicious persons pending law enforcement arrival. Raoul exhaled slowly. They're becoming the law. Worse, Anna said. They're becoming respected. She pulled up a photo. Daniel Croft, shaking hands with a Texas state representative at a charity gala. Another, Croft donating laptops to a school in Brownsville. A third, Croft kneeling beside a sobbing mother at a vigil for a murdered Border Patrol agent. Her son had been killed by a rival cartel, but Croft used the moment to position Sentinel Shield as the shield between chaos and community. He's good, Raoul admitted. He's not a thug. He's a storyteller. And stories, Anna said softly. are harder to kill than men. Raoul turned away, pacing the concrete floor. You want me to expose this? But how? Leak it to the press? The FBI? They'll bury it. Or worse, they'll use it to justify more militarization, more walls, more suffering for the very people you claim to protect. That's why I came to you, Anna said. Not to expose, to disrupt. She opened a new folder. Project Quiet Cut. Inside, blueprints of Sentinel Shield's McAllen data center, employee schedules, backup server locations, and a list of their top clients, including a major US pharmacy chain that relied on them for supply chain security along I-35. If we corrupt their data just enough, Anna said, their AI threat detection algorithms will start flagging innocent people as high risk. Delivery trucks, nurses, school buses, the system collapses under false alarms. Their clients pull out, their contracts void, and the Norest loses its US lifeline. Raoul stared at her. You want me to hack them? No, she corrected. I want you to manipulate them, like you did with El Cuervo. No code, no malware, just human error. She explained. Sentinel Shield's internal audits relied on a small team of bilingual compliance officers in Laredo. One of them, Maria Ruiz, had a brother recently arrested in Reynosa on trumped-up drug charges. Anna had been quietly representing him. If we get her brother released, Anna said, she'll owe us, and she has access to their internal validation logs. One changed timestamp, one mislabeled client ID. That's all it takes to trigger a cascade failure. Raoul was silent for a long time. Then he said, You're playing the same game they are. I'm using their rules against them, she shot back. What's the alternative? Wait until they own the police, the schools, the churches? Raoul walked to the window. Outside, a coyote trotted along the riverbank, eyes glinting in the moonlight. You think justice is clean, he said, but it never is. Every choice leaves a stain. Then let it be my stain, Anna said. I don't care if I go to prison. I just don't want another martyr, the teacher, the sister, to die thinking no one saw her. Raoul turned. You're not doing this for Marta. You're doing it because you feel guilty for defending El Cuervo. Anna flinched, but didn't deny it. I got him a reduced sentence once, she whispered, for testifying against a rival. I thought I was saving him. Instead, I gave him power, and he used it to hurt more people. Raoul looked at her, not with judgment, but with recognition. Because he too had once believed he could control the monster from the inside, he walked back to the desk. Maria Ruiz's brother, he said. What's his name? Luis, arrested on possession with intent. They planted fentanyl in his truck. Raoul opened a drawer in the desk, pulled out a notepad. Who's his arresting officer? Anna told him. Raoul wrote it down, then tore the page and handed it to her. Burn this after you read it, he said. Then go to Officer Delgado at the Reynosa Municipal Police. Tell him Raul Mendoza sends his regards. He'll know what to do. Anna's eyes widened. You still have contacts inside the police. I have debts, Raul corrected. And debts like ghosts never die. He picked up the laptop. I'll handle the data side, but you... He pointed at her. You stay out of Reynosa. No more visits. No more risks. If they connect you to this, they won't just kill you. They'll use your face in their next recruitment video. This is what happens to traitors. Anna swallowed hard. And if I refuse, Raoul met her gaze, then I walk away, and you'll be the next body floating in the Rio Grande. The room grew still. Finally, Anna nodded. I'll stay in McAllen. Good, Raoul said, because this isn't about heroes, it's about survivors. He powered on the laptop. The screen glowed in the dark barn. Outside, the coyote howled. Somewhere in McAllen, Daniel Croft toasted his latest contract with expensive tequila, unaware that the system he'd built on lies was already cracking. From the inside, by hands that never fired a shot. This wasn't fiction. This was happening right now. 3 days later, Luis Ruiz walked out of the Reynosa Municipal Jail at dawn, unshaven, thin, but alive. The charges had been dropped due to insufficient evidence. Officer Delgado, a weary man with 23 years on the force and a daughter in college, handed him a bus ticket to Monterrey and a warning, "Don't come back, not ever." Ana watched from a parked car 2 blocks away. She didn't approach, didn't wave. She simply recorded the moment on her phone, a silent testament that the machine could be bent, if not broken. That evening she met Raul at a 24-hour taqueria in McAllen, far from cameras and familiar faces. He sat in the back booth, eating al pastor with methodical calm. "It worked," she said, sliding in across from him. "Maria Ruiz sent a message through an encrypted channel. The ledger is open. She'll alter the validation logs tomorrow during her night shift." Raul didn't look up. "Good. But there's a problem," Ana said, lowering her voice. "Sentinel Shield just announced a partnership with the Department of Homeland Security, a pilot program. They'll be integrating their threat assessment AI directly into CBP's primary inspection lanes at the far Reynosa Bridge." Raul finally met her eyes. "They're weaponizing bureaucracy." "Exactly. If their system flags someone as high risk, CBP holds them for secondary screening. Delays, missed jobs, broken families, and if they find even a traffic ticket from 10 years ago, deportation." Raul set down his fork. "Then we don't just disrupt the data, we poison the well." "How?" "We give them a ghost they can't delete." He pulled a folded paper from his jacket, a printout of an old Gulf Cartel internal memo from 2006. On it, a routing code, a fuel depot ID, and a handwritten note. "El Relojero approves." Ana's breath caught. "That's your signature." "Yes," Raul said. "And tomorrow, Maria will insert that code into Sentinel Shield's historical client database, tagged as a legacy security contractor used during the early Zeta years, buried deep. Unremarkable, until DHS runs a background sweep." Ana understood. "They'll think Sentinel Shield's founder worked with the original Zetas. Worse," Raul said, "they'll think he still does, and in border enforcement, association is guilt." It was brilliant. Not a lie, but a truth twisted just enough to rot from within. But Ana hesitated. "If this gets out, your name will surface. El Relojero. All your past comes back." Raul sipped his horchata. "I stopped fearing ghosts a long time ago." "You're not just protecting Reynosa," she realized. "You're protecting yourself." "No," he said quietly. "I'm protecting the boy who cuts hair in that shop. The man who pretends he never knew how to break a ledger or bend a mind. That life. It's fragile, but it's mine." Ana looked down at her hands. "I used to think justice meant exposure. Naming names. Shining light. But you work in the dark so others don't have to." "Darkness isn't evil," Raul said. "It's cover. And sometimes cover is the only mercy left." They sat in silence as the taqueria emptied. Then Ana asked the question that had haunted her since she first saw his photo. "Why didn't you kill them? You could have. 1 bullet. 1 night. Done." Raul's eyes grew distant. "I watched my cousin die in 2005. They made him kneel in the dirt while his wife and son watched. Then they shot him, not in the head, but in the stomach. Made him bleed slow. Said it was lesson in loyalty. Afterward, his son stopped speaking for 2 years. His wife drowned herself in the river." He paused. "Killing El Cuervo wouldn't have brought them back. But making the cartel destroy itself, that was a language they understood. The only one." Ana wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "So this is your penance?" "No," Raul said. "This is my discipline." Outside, a CBP helicopter thumped across the night sky, scanning the river for shadows. The next morning, Maria Ruiz made her edit. By noon, Sentinel Shield's internal compliance dashboard flagged a historical anomaly. a dormant contractor ID linked to known Zeta logistics from 2006-2009. The system auto-flagged it for executive review. By 3 p.m., Daniel Croft received an encrypted alert on his secure tablet. By 5 p.m., he called an emergency board meeting. By midnight, 3 executives resigned. By dawn, DHS suspended the pilot program pending full forensic audit. Sentinel Shield's stock, private but tracked by cartel investors, plummeted 68%. The Norest's U.S. bridge was burning. But Raul didn't celebrate, because that same evening, Anna received a call from a blocked number. A distorted voice said, "Tell the barber his scissors are dull. The ghost has been seen." They were being hunted, not by street enforcers, by professionals. Raul knew what it meant. Sentinel Shield had activated its counterintelligence unit, ex-military, ex-intel, trained to track ghosts like him. He met Anna one last time at the drainage tunnel entrance behind the Pemex station. "You need to disappear," he told her. "Change your name, leave Texas, go to Canada, Costa Rica, anywhere with no extradition treaty." "And you?" she asked. "I stay," he said. "Someone has to watch the ashes." She handed him a sealed envelope. "If anything happens to me, this goes to a journalist in Austin. It contains everything, your methods, their structure, the truth." Raul didn't take it. "Burn it." "But if it exists on paper," he said, "it can be used as a weapon. The only truth that matters is the one that stays buried." Anna stared at him, tears in her eyes. "You really believe that?" Raul touched her shoulder, briefly, like a father. "I believe tomorrow is always a chance for a new beginning. But only if we survive tonight." Then he turned and walked into the tunnel. Behind him, Anna stood in the dust, the envelope trembling in her hands. She didn't burn it. Not yet, because some truths are too heavy to bury, and some ghosts refuse to stay silent. This wasn't fiction. This was happening right now. The raid came at 4:17 a.m., not on Raul's barbershop, not on Anna's apartment, but on a storage unit in North McAllen, unit number 214, rented under a false name, paid in cash. Inside, burner phones, encrypted drives, and a printed map of Sentinel Shield's server farms. Planted, obvious. A trap within a trap. Raul had expected it. He'd left the unit unlocked, the blinds open, the evidence neatly arranged like a museum exhibit. But he'd also embedded a single countermeasure, a micro-transmitter, inside a hollowed-out Bible that pinged every 90 seconds to a disposable email. An email Anna monitored from a library in San Antonio. When the transmission stopped, she knew. They'd taken the bait, but Raul wasn't there. He was across the river, sitting in a dim internet cafe in Reynosa, watching live traffic feeds from McAllen city cameras via a hacked municipal portal. He saw the black SUVs converge, saw the tactical team breach the unit, saw them emerge 10 minutes later, faces tight with frustration. No arrests, no Raul, because Raul had never intended to be caught. He'd wanted them to believe he was sloppy, and in that belief, they made their mistake. By sunrise, Sentinel Shield issued an internal bulletin. Asset El Relojero neutralized. Evidence recovered. Threat level downgraded. The Norestes leadership in Monterrey relaxed. Their U.S. operations stalled, but their core remained intact. What they didn't know was that while they celebrated, Raul had already executed his final move. Using credentials Elena had procured from a compromised HR database, he'd logged into Sentinel Shield's executive benefits portal and triggered an automatic clause. If a senior contractor dies or goes missing, all offshore trust disbursements freeze pending investigation. He didn't hack accounts. He used their own bureaucracy against them. Within 48 hours, 7 key US-based financiers, men who'd laundered cartel profits through real estate and crypto, found their withdrawals blocked. Their yachts seized by Cayman Islands trustees, their families questioned by compliance officers they'd never met. Panic spread through the boardroom, and with panic came betrayal. One financier, fearing exposure, contacted the FBI with a partial confession. Not enough to convict, but enough to trigger a full-scale IRS and DEA probe into Sentinel Shield's financial web. By the end of the week, the company was hemorrhaging. Clients pulled out, investors vanished. Even Daniel Croft disappeared, flying to Panama on a private jet, only to be detained at Tocumen International on an Interpol red notice for money laundering. The Cartel del Noreste's Reynosa cell, officially dismantled, not by bullets, by balance sheets. But victory tasted like ash. Because that same week, Anna received a package at her office, no return address. Inside, the sealed envelope she'd refused to burn, the one meant for the journalist in Austin. And a note in Raoul's handwriting. "Some truths are cages. I set this one free, so you wouldn't have to carry it." He'd taken it and destroyed it. She called the number he'd given her, the one only she knew. It went straight to voicemail. 2 days later, she drove to his barbershop. The Cortes Finos Raoul sign was gone. The windows were boarded. A new tenant, a woman selling embroidered blouses, was sweeping the floor. "Raoul?" she asked. The woman shook her head. "Never heard that name. This place has been empty for months." Anna stood on the sidewalk, staring at the empty space where a quiet man had once cut hair and moved empires with silence. She didn't cry. She understood. Raoul hadn't fled. He'd erased. Not just his location, but his existence. Because in the borderlands, the safest ghost is the one no one remembers. Back in McAllen, Anna filed the final paperwork to close the legal aid case on Luis Ruiz. Then she opened a new file, Project Frontera Futures, Investigative Review. She wouldn't expose Raoul, but she would continue his work, quietly, legally, relentlessly, because the war wasn't over, it had just changed shape. And that night, as she walked home under a sky thick with stars, her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Tell the children the barber's scissors still cut lies." She smiled faintly. He was still watching, still fighting, but from the shadows, as always. This wasn't fiction. This was happening right now. 5 years later, the University of Texas School of Law hosted its annual symposium on non-lethal disruption in transnational organized crime. The auditorium was packed. FBI agents in plain clothes, DEA analysts, graduate students from Mexico City and Bogota, even a few curious journalists. On stage, a young man in a navy blazer adjusted his glasses and clicked to the next slide. "Case Study 3, he said, voice calm, confident. "The Reynosa Cell Collapse, 2026. A textbook example of asymmetric deconstruction where information, not violence, dismantled a mid-tier cartel operation." His name was Mateo Mendez, son of Javier El Cuervo Mendez. He didn't mention his father, not by name. But those who knew the history felt the unspoken weight in the room. Mateo's presentation was sharp, analytical, free of emotion. He detailed how an unknown actor, referred to in academic circles as the clockmaker, had exploited cartel paranoia, financial interdependencies, and internal disciplinary protocols to trigger a self-destruct sequence. "No firearms were ever recovered," Mateo said. "No forensic evidence linked any individual to the deaths. Yet within 8 weeks, the entire Reynosa extortion network evaporated. This proves that cartels aren't just criminal enterprises, they're psychological ecosystems, and ecosystems can be poisoned from within." He cited fictionalized composites, a retired accountant, a disbarred attorney, a former logistics specialist, as hypothetical collaborators. He never named Raúl Mendoza, never mentioned Ana Delgado, because their names had vanished from official records, scrubbed by Elena's legal maneuvers and Hector's data purges. To the world, the Reynosa collapse remained an unsolved anomaly. To Mateo, it was a puzzle to be reverse-engineered, a model for future counter-cartel operations. What he didn't know was that in the third row, 2 seats from the aisle, an older woman with silver-streaked hair and a discreet scar on her left wrist watched him with quiet sorrow. Ana Delgado. She'd come not to confront, but to witness. Because she now ran a non-profit Frontera Justice Initiative that trained border attorneys in the very tactics Mateo described: financial forensics, psychological profiling, institutional sabotage. All legal, all deniable, all born from the shadow war Raul had waged. After the lecture, Mateo took questions. A student asked, "Do you think this method is ethical? Manipulating people into destroying each other?" Mateo paused. Ethics in asymmetry are fluid. The goal isn't to be moral. It's to be effective. And if you can stop a cartel without firing a shot, isn't that worth the moral ambiguity? Ana almost laughed. She remembered Raul saying the same thing over horchata in a Macallan taqueria. Some truths echo across generations, even when the speakers never meet. As the crowd dispersed, Ana slipped out a side door. On her way to her car, she stopped at a newsstand near the campus. A local paper featured a small article: "Mysterious benefactor funds youth coding camp in Reynosa." The donor? Anonymous, only known by the codename El Barbero. She smiled. He was still out there, still cutting lies, still giving kids a chance. That night, Ana sat at her desk and opened a secure folder labeled "Legacy Do Not Delete." Inside, a single photo. Raul, standing outside his old barber shop, holding a coffee cup, sunlight in his eyes. No date, no caption. Just a man who chose information over bullets, silence over glory, and discipline over revenge. She closed the file. Then she drafted a grant proposal to expand her program into Nuevo Laredo, because the work never ends. It only changes hands. Was this justice, or just another cycle of revenge? Like this video if this story moved you. Subscribe for more realistic cartel dramas, and tell us in the comments, what's your hometown? From Tijuana to Tampa,